Gaming has only been around for about 40 years, since the introduction of Pong, at least depending on how you define it. Perhaps instead you think it was Space War, or maybe it was actually straight cheese drafts, but simply thanks to the fact that this is not yet an ancient and noble pastime, new genres are constantly being invented. Many of these new genres start out as simply one game, and that game goes on to overshadow the genre for many, many years. Doom clones become first-person shooters. Rogue-like dominates hardcore mode games until it loses its meaning entirely, and Souls-like becomes something that is somehow even attributed to Crash Bandicoot's Insane trilogy. Eventually, the genre needs a name simply to more clearly identify it away from its originator. In 2015, Agar DotIO reaches viral levels and effectively starts a new genre, one that today is still commonly referred to as .io. Interestingly, this is one genre that has almost nothing to do with the actual game mechanics. It's not defined by the perspective, such as first person or third person or isometric. Neither is it defined by the player's movements, such as real-time or turn-based. In fact, almost uniquely, it is exclusively defined by platform. .io games are browser-based, and you browse to them on your internet edge by typing in a word and .io. Self-explanatory naming scheme indeed. The only other type of title that is semi-universally described and understood by platform would be mobile game. But even then, it's usually preceded by something: casual mobile game, gambling mobile game, or even further as a clone game. Angry Birds clone, Clash of Clans clone. But not .io. No, these are games exclusively described and categorized by the internet domain that they inhabit. In fact, trying to collectively describe them as anything more reductive than .io ends up severely splitting the base. They aren't all casual. They're not all competitive. There's no guarantee of persistent universe, massively multiplayer servers, or any of the other attributes typically assumed to be part of .io. Truly, the most collective term really is .io. But why do we assume that a .io game would be any of those in the first place? Why would we assume it would be casual, competitive, persistent, and multiplayer? That all comes down to Agar.io. In 2015, yes, 2015, a young Brazilian programmer would post his as-of-yet unnamed game on 4chan. The community immediately jumped on board and started propelling the game into virality. Some names were thrown around, and eventually they settled on Sell.io. And .io was chosen simply because it was inexpensive and mostly unused. So what is .io? That stands for British Indian Ocean Territories. Now, as many of you probably know, buying a domain from another country usually requires that you live in that country. They are reserved for the citizens of those countries. In a lucky stroke, for some people, all of the original citizens of the British Indian Ocean Territories were removed by the military, so now it's just a bunch of Brits and a couple US military bases. What this means is that anyone can register a .io domain. Further, it means that there are a lot of names that aren't taken yet. Have you ever gone to sign up for a new Gmail account? Try it today. I'll bet dollars to donuts you can't get any username that isn't at least a little bit unwieldy. When you're trying to get someone to visit your website and build a brand around it, that website probably shouldn't be something really long and hard to remember 27.wixsite.com. So, Sell.io. Except, well, that name wasn't available. However, an anonymous 4chaner suggested Agar. For those of us who spent biology class listening to music and doodling, agar is the stuff inside a petri dish that allows for cells to grow. Therefore, Agar.io is basically the same thing. Genius. Agar.io provides a very simple gameplay premise. You start small, eat food, and eat other players. Eventually, you grow to be the biggest, the baddest, the best, the top of the leaderboard. Other gameplay functions were introduced: the ability to split your cells, the ability to shoot out a little bit of your own mass, viruses that would force larger cells to split, but provided smaller cells a place to hide. Additionally, usernames and skins, customization, and more was planned, but it didn't need it. With the domain name secured, the game was posted on 4chan and started exploding. And it really did rise to the top. It may be surprising to hear that Agar DotIO was the number 7 most searched term on all of Google, right behind Paris. It was the number 1 most searched game for 2015. It handily beat out Fallout 4, a AAA title with a budget of over $100 million. It was played by streamers, and PewDiePie even made an entire series of videos about it. But as a testament to the game's immediate popularity, PewDiePie did so because it was popular and fun, and his audience wanted to see it, not like some of the other games that only became popular after he played them. In fact, at one point, the 19-year-old developer posted on Reddit that he was seeing 300 to 350 connections every second. So what happened? Well, he almost immediately sold the game to Miniclip, a site that hosts many small games. Microtransactions were added, Facebook integration was added, and a large amount of players just sort of disappeared. You can still play Agar DotIO today, right now. It's the same game it's been with some minor changes. In fact, the changelog has 6 updates total, going back to 2017. Where did these players go? Well, there was no shortage of copycats. .io was a thing now. Agar had been built in about 4 days, and its intense and immediate success, profit, and popularity guaranteed competitors. None of them were superbly successful until Slithered.io the following year. Slither was a huge, incredible success, generating $100,000 a day in revenue for its creator. Essentially the same concept as Agar, but with personality. You start small, eat food, and eat others. Instead of simply swallowing your enemies, and I'd like to take this moment to show this piece of fan art from Agar from artist Alexia Way, simply because it's hilarious to sort of imagine it happening like this. Instead of this, you can only kill an enemy or die yourself by bumping headfirst into other worms or snakes. There is an actual and real argument in this community, by the way, as to whether or not it's a worm or a snake. This and the fact that your snake has googly eyes provided an amount of personality that the Agar cells do not. A large Agar player's cell feels monumental, inhumanly large, and unfeeling. It doesn't even notice you as it eats you, it just continues moving along at its own pace. With Slither, that same player will purposefully encircle you, forcing you to die so that it can eat your essence. They feel more personally malignant. Perhaps this is the thing that really drives these games and their cultural virality. Gaming is something that is heavily researched by serious and totally real scientists because of its value outside of pure entertainment. I don't just mean the profit derived from games either, but the value that gamification has outside of entertainment entirely. Consider the Starbucks reward program, a heavily gamified customer commitment tool to increase sales. Habitica is a gamified production app. Khan Academy, TED-Ed, Coursera, all educational tools that have heavily gamified to increase user happiness, educational effectiveness, and yes, profitability. Even eBay's bidding process was refined through gamification to encourage you to bid more, bid higher, and come back often. .io games, especially Slither and Agar, use many of the core mechanisms that have been found to drive high engagement. .io games, especially Slither and Agar, use many of the core mechanisms that have been found to drive high engagement: leaderboards, customization, quick completions with little loss, and easy gains. Being maliciously targeted by an evil rainbow snake, snuffed out for nothing more than existing, well, you have impetus to jump back in and get that guy back. And if not that guy, you're damn sure going to get someone else. Because Slither Misery loves company. Slithery. Miss Slithery. Agar was not the first .io. In fact, it wasn't even the developer's first .io. Immediately preceding Agar .io was Vor.io, a game about circling a planet as close as possible. The closer you are, the faster you gain points. You can suicide run at other players and both of you die, meaning being number one on the leaderboards was a high-risk position. But that still wasn't even his first .io. No, that privilege goes to Cursors.io. This was also probably the very first .io game. This game is a cooperative/competitive maze game. You can still play it today, and interestingly enough, it is itself a petri dish for looking at collaborative gaming. Every other person you're playing with will take the easy option and move on to the next level, screwing over every other player literally as soon as possible. Yet someone has to be cooperative, or no one moves forward. With enough players, yes, you can just fly through as another one of the masses who refuses to do anything, but at lower player counts, you will be sitting, staring at the screen, hoping that anyone, please, anyone, just come along and help. It's a fascinating look at self-serving versus tribal collaboration. The question then is, why aren't .io games still incredibly popular? They represented several major titles across several years, and dozens of smaller yet still successful titles like Deep, Survive, Mope, and more. But none of them ever reached the same levels of success. For this, I blame two things. First, the oversaturation of the .io market by low-quality titles, all in it for a quick buck, coupled with the fact that most of these games were simply clones of Agar or Slither. The few that managed to see any level of success were often much more different. Games like Scribble.io, which allows players to draw together, and the others mentioned earlier. Additionally, there's one other thing that happened around this time that kind of changed the gaming world, especially the free gaming world, and especially the world of the children that were playing these .io games primarily. Fortnite. Yes, the Fortnite extinction event hit many smaller titles very, very hard because suddenly they were competing against a cultural phenomenon that was additionally free and sucked up all of their attention. The kids previously playing the .io games were now playing Fortnite, or watching Fortnite on Twitch, or watching Twitch stream highlights of Fortnite on YouTube, or making soon-to-be-deleted vines of Fortnite dances, or watching stolen compilations of Fortnite dance vines on YouTube. That left little time for .ios, and especially the ones that didn't have huge and stable user bases. Not only are servers expensive and therefore need players to be generating ad dollars and buying skins or else the game is shut down, but additionally there is a certain point where the downward spiral is no longer reversible. The event horizon of a multiplayer game's death. New players can't find enough existing players to have a successful and meaningful game, and older players are bored only playing with the same old guard and a few new players. The middle class has left, and the new players leave pretty quickly too, and that just leaves the oldest and most loyal players, the ones who will leave, but not because they want to, they're just bored. Eventually, there's no one there to play the game. I expect that soon enough another .io will arrive with some level of virality, but it's hard to imagine that we'll ever see one quite like Slither and Agar. Their time was short, and there was no clear successor to keep it going. The genre of .io is impossible to clearly encapsulate, except to say that it's a website you can play a game on. Comparing Agar to Scribble and saying they're both in the same genre is a hard sell to most gamers, even though at the most superficial level they're both considered .io games. Other than their browser-based approach, there's little between them that is comparable. What is your favorite .io game? Is it still around? Have you played it in the past year, 2 years? And how long did you play it for? Most .io games have a 3-month peak at their max. They rarely see high levels past that, so I'm curious if you're one of the people who stayed longer, or did you only jump in a few times? Also, how much of a connection do you think there is to Osmos? I'd love to know if the Agar developer had played it before working on his own game. Thank you so much for sharing this video. It really helps us out because we are smaller creators. Feel free not to, but we do appreciate every person who shares this video. If you'd like to watch another one, you can see it in the corner right now, and as always, we'll see you on the next one.